Welcome. You're listening to Behind the Home Build, a podcast dedicated to all things home building. Whether you're a home builder, home buyer, or something in between, we're here to connect you with the industry experts. My name is Danny Langerman, CEO and mortgage loan originator. With me is my son Riley Langerman, mortgage loan originator. There we go.
Nice
I like
job.
it.
Nice job,
Way to
Chuck.
go.
Chuck knows all about that, right?
Yep. Sync up the sound.
So, all right. Well, first off, welcome today, guys, to Behind the Home Build podcast. Appreciate you guys coming in. And actually, I'll be the host today, and Riley's switching roles. Riley's actually today is going to be a guest, and we're going to talk to Charlie Beller, Nick Kounkel, and Riley Langerman here about Gen Zers who went through the process to actually purchase their first home. How you guys feeling so far?
Pretty good.
Doing good.
Yeah?
Can't lie.
So you've had it for you've been homeowners now for an entire week,
Yeah.
A whole week.
a whole week. As I think today was yesterday was your or was it today? A week from today.
Yesterday? Wasn't it Wednesday? Was it Wednesday or
Last Thursday.
I think it was last Thursday. As you
Week
guys all
today.
said. So let's go through the journey a little bit here. I'm kind of excited to hear that because first off, you guys went through high school together, right? All three of you went to Chaparral,
Yeah.
right? Became friends there, good friends there. And then from my understanding, so Nick, you went to CSU,
Correct. Yeah.
right? And then Charlie, you went off to CU, and then Riley took his stint in baseball. And then you guys kind of came back, and then so Nick, give me kind of the background of when you graduated from college. Where did you go? What did you do? That kind of thing.
I actually just graduated this past May. Was working full time, trying to knock out the rest of my degree online, and then I was living in an apartment. Started saving up some money, and that's kind of when I decided that I was gonna be done renting and wanted to buy a house. And that's kind of where the journey started, because my lease ended, and then I decided I was gonna move in with my mom for a little bit, while I was looking for houses and save up a little bit more money. And then a few months down the road, purchase a home, and that's kind of where the journey started.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. So you and Charlie actually lived together for a year.
Prior to that, yep.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
And then,
Yeah.
so how did that? You guys just got out of college, said, "Hey, let's live together." Where'd you guys live?
We lived in Westminster for a year out of college together with another roommate, just the three of us, and we were all just kind of working, living together. And then Nick and Colin both got girlfriends, and their girlfriends made them move in with them. So
I gotcha.
I had to move in with my grandma
I
because
see how I see how that works.
Grandmas are better than girlfriends.
So that's pretty good. So one thing I got to ask you guys. So you guys were living up in Westminster together, the three of you. What were you guys paying a month in rent?
It's actually a lot cheaper back then.
we were paying $900 each.
Yep.
So whatever that
it was
is,
like-
times 3.
2,700
Yeah.
around there.
Okay,
Yeah.
so about $900 each, and still that was back then, a couple of years ago.
Yep.
So
And
Right.
we've looked recently in that same complex. I think is up to like 3,500 for the same unit.
Gotcha.
So
you're looking at $1,100-$1,200 per person for a 3-bedroom.
yep.
Okay. So now Riley graduates, comes back. I know you guys had started, Riley, go from there because you guys had started kind of looking together, possibly just renting together is where it started.
Well, I mean, I moved back and kind of did a few different jobs, and then went up to Steamboat, and then I came back, moved in with you and all my other family members and Parker here, and that journey just kind of goes where I'm trying to figure out how to move out and kind of start my independence and do what I need to do. And so Nick was on his journey of thinking about home ownership, and we kind of started talking, and I'm trying to find, maybe roommates to rent with, or Nick talked about buying a house, and he said, "Hey, Riley, I think I'm going to buy a house. Would you be willing to rent from me in my house, rent one of my rooms?" And at that same time, I was getting licensed to work with you as a loan officer, and so I was learning about the process of home ownership and qualifying and kind of all the standards that really make it possible, all the ins and the outs, and kind of looked at Nick and I said, I don't want to rent from you because I want to also buy a house, and it's pretty difficult to do on our own right now, so why don't we talk about doing that together, and that way we can both build some equity. And then kind of flourished from there.
Yeah, and then I kind of got brought into the conversation too because I was kind of in the same boat where I was willing to rent to Nick. It all kind of started with Nick thinking about buying a home from the beginning, and then Riley kind of hopping in and be like, why don't we co-own? And I'm fortunate enough to have really good friends in these two guys who both were like, hey, we don't want to take advantage of you. In terms of like us buying a house and you renting, it would actually be easier if you bought it with us, like I had a lot of savings from living with my grandma too, and so they were like, you actually are able to do this, and I didn't really have an understanding of that. I actually didn't think that I would be able to do it, and then coming here and applying for the loan and everything really kind of gave me an understanding of like, this is well within, my reach financially, especially co-owning. Definitely not something that I would have been able to do without them, financially or even intellectually. Like, I don't think I would have been able to go through this process, but I think I'm just fortunate enough to be brought into the conversation, and just been learning a lot on the way as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, that's awesome. I mean, so you're all 24 years old, Gen Zers, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, crazy. I've, over the past 2 or 3 years, I think I've done a total of one loan, being your guys' loan that young adults your age have decided to go into home ownership. So, and I get, there's a lot of kind of flack that I get too, because I always make the argument is for me, there's always a solution for every single problem. And so now I want to hear is kind of what's the flack that you guys got as far as owning versus renting, right? So let me step back a second too. So right now, your guys' your guys' mortgage payment runs about how much?
Just over $4,000.
So over $4,000. So you guys are each paying roughly, let's say $1,350 each, right? Which is what you'd be paying if you were renting right now. But now you're homeowners and you're
Correct.
you're getting something out of this, right? I can already tell with you guys. You guys are always, you've moved in and everything is all, you're kind of handling more with kid gloves. It's kind of your stuff. I'm excited to come over and just trash the place, just so you know. All right, just so I can get kind of a little bit even and stuff from all the times that Riley did. But so give me your guys's. I want to hear kind of some of the, when you would talk to friends or even there's adults out there too. I'm sure you guys were talking to your parents. So let's start off with you first, Charlie. Give me your input.
Yeah, so the biggest thing that people always say with me is they're like, well, do you know those guys? Do you trust those guys? And I'm like, yeah, actually, I grew up with these guys, like, since from a young age. It's not like I'm just buying a house with people that I don't know or trust or love. I, love these guys both really deeply, and I trust them. And a lot of people are like, that's a bad idea because what if someone wants to move out, or what if someone wants to do this? And people don't realize that we've already had all these conversations, and we've already talked about pretty much every
Multiple times.
Yeah, pretty much every situation that could come up. We've talked about, and we've started actually like drafting an agreement on how things will work down the road in terms of home ownership. But, the biggest thing for me is communication. And I don't think people realize how much we trust each other and how much we communicate with each other. But another thing that people say is, they're like, how can you afford that? Bunch of other stuff. But having two other guys with it, it's actually pretty affordable. The biggest thing people say, though, from my perspective, is what if someone moves out, or what if someone wants out, blah blah blah. And we've kind of talked about that, and we've come up with an agreement that we're going to all live in the house for at least 3 years. Then have a conversation down the road after that on what we're going to do, whether we're going to stay in the house or we're going to start renting it, stuff like that. So a lot of people are like, they don't think it's the wisest decision, but once I talk to my family and my friends about our dynamic, and I think once they understand and get to know us, they realize they've been really happy for me.
That's
So,
awesome.
Yeah.
That's good. Nick, give me your flack stories.
A lot of my flack was, I guess, because I have what you could say a pretty good job. A lot of my family was confused as to why I was purchasing something with them and not on my own, because in their mind I could afford something on my own. But my philosophy was always, just because I can afford it doesn't necessarily mean I should do it. There were a few townhomes I looked at out by the airport, kind of by my office, and my estimates were $3,400 a month. And if I didn't have roommates, sure, yeah, I could probably afford it. But my lifestyle would not be up to speed with. I mean, I think we all like to travel. I really like to go to concerts, just go out and have fun. And when you're paying $3,000 a month, in the off chance that you can't find roommates, you're pretty much house poor. And that was kind of most of the criticism I got, was like, oh, well, why don't you just do it on your own? And it's like, well, it's easier said than done. And I think a lot of my parents and grandparents, it's almost like they say something and they think it's like, oh, like, it's like a I gotcha moment. Like, oh, what happens if one of you gets a girlfriend and she moves in? It's like, oh, yeah, you got us. Like, we didn't talk about that a million times. You know what I mean? And I've had, like, that's the biggest one I've gotten.
Yeah.
Oh,
Same.
what happens if one of you meets a girl? It's like, we have talked about that a million times, and it's in our agreement, and we know how we're going to handle it. And that's pretty much the biggest one I've got. And really, most of the criticism for me has came from the older generation, because I think this business model is kind of unheard of, for maybe your generation or my parents' generation. And to be honest, most of our friends that are our age, they think it's a good idea, because they understand the reality of how hard it is to buy a home right now. And I encourage all of our friends to look into it, talk to a lender, find a real estate agent, and more times than not, you'll find out that it's way more within your reach than you probably thought it was originally. But yeah, that's probably my biggest one. What if you meet a girl?
Yeah, and
What if one of your roommates doesn't pay the mortgage? Stuff like that.
And for the record, we've already even discussed a girlfriend flat rate that we'll be charging.
And I think there's only one of you right now that has entered that category.
I won't be having one anytime.
For now, but
Riley, give me what's your biggest flack?
pretty similar to the boys. I think I kind of got two different sides of it, just being in the industry. At a lot of our events with the HBA, I'd be talking to people about it, and a lot of people in the industry are, very reassuring. Oh, that's a great idea. They have kids or relatives that are young that, they're like, oh, that would be great for them. But on the side of, our friends and outside of the industry, a lot of people think it's a crazy concept or a crazy idea that we're doing this. I think part of it is because we have three of us, so that complicates some things, right? But, kind of like these guys said, I mean, there's nothing off the table as far as communication, and we're about as open and honest as we could get with all three of us, and I think that goes back to our roots, especially. But other than that, I think just the numbers and the financial aspect. we're all three coming from different backgrounds, different experiences, different college educations, different careers. And so to combine all of that and just to decide, that homeownership is going to be better for renting because, a lot of our friends, at least in a lot of my friends, in my experience, people my age, even a few years older, a lot of them are living with their parents. And that's just the state that we're in as far as the cost of living goes. And, they're either living with their parents or they're saving no money, spending $1,500 a month on an apartment and putting all their money towards, living in an apartment where your money kind of goes into thin air a little bit. And so to me, the numbers were a big flack where people are like, how is this possible? How much are you putting down? What's your monthly payment look like? But breaking down the numbers, talking about how much we actually need to put down, what our monthly payment's going to be, the interest rate, all the taxes and insurance, all that. When you really look at them, to divide it by three of us, it makes it cheaper to be homeowners than to go rent a home together. And so that's kind of the biggest flack I think I get besides the girlfriend piece, because that's definitely a big one. What happens when you get a girlfriend and you want to move out or go do whatever, and like they said, I mean, we've talked about all that stuff, but
Well,
Right.
with all the criticisms too, I've told these guys from the beginning, this might sound like kind of cocky or whatever, but I've always said don't take advice from someone in a position that you don't want to be in. So I'm not going to sit here and get offended by someone telling us we shouldn't do this and it's a dumb idea when they're living in Denver paying $2,200 a month in rent. You know what I mean? And if you think that's better for you and what you got going on, that's fine. But I think what we're doing is much smarter than that. And so I don't want to be in that position paying $2,000 a month in rent. So that's kind of where my head goes. And also to your point, 3 people sounds crazy, but 3 people is actually easier than 2 people when you really break it down as far as financially and making decisions, making business decisions. It makes it easier.
yeah, you have that easy option of, which way do we go? This one person's a decider.
Majority rules.
Yeah.
hmm
Yeah.
That's a great way to set it up. And actually brings me into kind of my next question too, which I'm sure you guys heard a lot about too, is you guys had a lot of misnomers what it takes to get actually qualified to even buy a house. I mean, I remember talking to Riley and just talking to him. So let's go over, Nick, I'll start with you. How much did you guys actually put down? What and how was that before you even started looking for a home? You guys got pre-approved and stuff. How was were you surprised about the pre-approval process? How much did you guys end up putting down? And was it that pre-approval process more difficult or easier than what you anticipated it to be?
I think for me, it was way easier than I thought it was going to be. I think obviously it takes time, but from a technical and time and financial perspective, it's actually pretty easy. We put 3% down on a $545,000 house. I think a large misconception with our generation specifically is that you have to put 20% down, which is not feasible for anyone our age. I don't really care who it is. I mean, it might be for like the 1%, but none of us have 80 grand sitting around, so 3% in total was what, like $16,000
$16,350
divided by
Sure.
3 people. And then now it obviously starts to become more realistic when you really break it down. So
all in all, that initial process you felt was pretty simple.
I thought it was easy. What
Okay,
did you
good.
guys think?
Charlie, I'll go with Charlie first, then I'm going to step with Riley, because Riley and I were dealing a little bit more in the back end on that. So go ahead, Charlie.
Yeah, my mom was actually she was super shocked that we only put 3% down. She was like, "Wow, you only put 3% down. That's awesome. Like I didn't even know you could do that." And I was like, "Yeah, 3% down. I mean, still $15,000. I mean, nothing small, but definitely smaller than 20%. In terms of the process, I just remember coming into this office, really beautiful office, by the way. I love the space, love the setup. and just talking to you about the pre-approval process, sending all my documents in and stuff. Really understanding, what I'm making monthly and what I can do. And I mean, that's what you do. That's your job, is to say, hey, this is what you make, and, you can do this financially. I mean, even before we were going into the house, I've talked to these guys a lot about how it's the most that I'm ever gonna be paying. I've only paid $900 in rent, and so I've had a lot of anxiety around, can I do this? Is it affordable? And I feel like it's important to have a really good loan officer, because that's your job, is to be like, hey, you've crunched the numbers and been like, you are able to do this. If I wasn't able to do it, you would tell me. I wouldn't get pre-approved. And we even talked about, what we qualified for individually. And so it was cool to see that and see, like, I do qualify for a loan individually. I obviously couldn't buy anything by myself with that. I mean, I could maybe, but
A little shack.
yeah, I could a little shack. But I thought the process was pretty smooth. Just in terms of getting pre-approved, and then once we got pre-approved, starting to look for homes, and that process was actually probably harder than the pre-approval process, for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
There's more to it.
Yeah,
That's for sure.
There's
For
definitely
sure.
a lot more to it. Once, I think the pre-approval process is the first step, and I think that a lot of people have anxiety around that and are scared of what that looks like. But I think getting pre-approved isn't. I would recommend everyone to do it, just to see where you're at, because you don't have to do anything with it. It's just, you can get pre-approved, and then you can see what is possible for you. So that was the first step in the process, and I think it's one of the easier steps in terms of that. But once we started looking at houses and stuff, and all figuring out, like, what we want in a house, and having those conversations, that's where it starts to get a little bit trickier. But we mapped through it, and we were all cognizant of, what we like and what we want, and you guys were also really gracious with me in that process, because you would be like, oh, these are houses that you might like, let's go check this out. And I'd be like, okay, I didn't even really carry my weight in that aspect of things, in terms of, like, looking for houses. You guys were the ones that were sending houses in the group chat all the time, and I would be like, oh, I like this one. Oh, I don't like this one. It's like an online dating app for houses. Swipe left, swipe right. So, but that process was fun as well. So yeah.
That's great. So Riley, give me your version.
Overall, it was pretty simple, pretty easy. I think one of the beginning, things that I didn't even really know is just, okay, how does this work to put all three of us on a mortgage? And what do we have to have individually to qualify, and what do we have to have together, right? Because a big part of qualifying for a mortgage is your employment. And so we all have different careers and have worked for them for different lengths, and everything kind of just fell into place as far as that goes. And it was pretty relatively easy and simple, right? Just sending you our verification of employment, our bank statements, right? All that, the usual stuff, just to make sure that we're in a position where we know what we're looking for as far as purchase price and what we can qualify. That was really simple. I think the harder part was the real estate aspect. And so Nick's mom is our realtor, and even everything fell into place in the beginning there as far as timing. Shout out Kelly for grinding, and
Shout out, Mom.
right. She took a real estate test very rushed, just to try and represent us when we were ready to buy a house together. And I think I know that, I appreciate it. And, I think I could speak for all of us when I say shout out, Kelly. We appreciate you.
Love you, Mom.
Yeah, that was so. And actually, that kind of goes to the next part is you guys, even though you guys were buying a house, you guys had a lot of people looking out for you. So you had Nick's mom, you had Nick's aunt, who's also in the mortgage industry, myself. So you guys had a lot of people that were really kind of, overseeing everything to make sure everything went as smooth as possible, especially on your financing side. But I will say, you guys went through the ringer on the real estate side. Okay, so you guys put in, if I recall, you put in one contract or did you put in two contracts?
We put in 2. We also offered on a house prior to that.
Okay.
That we put in 2 contracts on.
Yeah.
So put in 2. Got one of them said no. The other one, I think, actually was the one that was closest to
In your neighborhood,
in our neighborhood, and they
weren't budging on price.
Yeah, they weren't
so,
budging, which was
yeah.
kind of crazy. So then you guys went to found a house in Parker, put an offer in on it, and then you went through the inspection. So all this part is easy. You got the pre-approval done. You got now you hit the inspection, right? So give me Riley, give me kind of the when the inspection came up. What were some of the issues that you guys ran into?
So the original kind of overall inspection that we did, it was pretty minor stuff. The major stuff was that the furnace was 29 years old and the AC unit was 23 years old, and both of those are past their kind of lifetimes. And so we wanted to try and find a way to combat that a little bit. And then also one of the big ones, we hired a plumber to come do a sewage inspection.
Who'd you hire?
We hired my dear friend Trenton Johnson out of NITEC Heating and Cooling. But
Best plumber in southern Denver.
yeah, exactly. Shout out Trenton. But
He's on IR right now.
he is on the IR with a torn meniscus. But thank you, Trenton. Came out and did a sewer line inspection, main sewer line inspection, and he found a crack underneath our front yard. So thank God it wasn't underneath pavement or driveway or anything like that. But still not a easy task. And as far as like the responsibility of that, as long as we had the inspection and we found that, and so we were able to bring that to the seller, and that's something that they need to fix or disclose to anybody that is going to sell or buy their house. And so that was the big thing as far as our inspection goes that we needed as far as hiccups go in our inspection.
Yeah, to anybody buying a house, do not bypass the sewer inspection or the radon inspection.
Mm-hmm.
Something we learned. It's worth the money up front. So I'll just throw that out there.
Yeah, for sure. And
So out of the house that you guys bought, you got a new furnace out of it.
yeah.
What did you get? Tell me what the sellers fixed, and what you got brand new out of it.
You want to go over that?
Yeah, so originally my mom had requested or suggested that we request a home warranty on all the appliances. So we agreed to put that in there. And then we also requested that they would replace the sewer line before we moved in. There's a few other minor things, like the fireplace wasn't working, so a few other small things. But basically what happened is they declined the home warranty, and then we counteroffered again. I think we started at a 3-year warranty. We brought it down to a 2. And then at that point, the selling agent told my mom, like, hey, they're not going to buy a home warranty. That's non-negotiable. And so luckily we have a good realtor, and my mom said, okay, if you're not going to do that, now we're going to counteroffer again and say you need to have it inspected and serviced. They said, okay, that's fine, we'll do that. What ended up happening was they came out and inspected everything. The furnace didn't pass inspection, so then we ended up getting a new furnace anyways, which a home warranty probably would have costed them a couple grand, maybe $2,000 if that, and the new furnace costed over $5,000. So that was a cool experience for us, just learning on kind of what your abilities are as a buyer. Right now, a lot of people will say we're in a buyer's market, so don't let the seller control or get rid of things out of the inspection or the contract that are non-negotiables. And then they did agree to pay for the sewer replacement pretty much right away.
Yeah.
and so that was cool.
Yeah, I think my experience with that was like we all were really unsure because we knew that it was, it's a break in the main sewer line that goes out to the street. And so personally, I've always trying to stay optimistic, but it was hard because we're like, okay, we're going through this speed bump. They got a big fix to make. We're going back and forth on our inspection objection list and everything. And so, but when I would come to you and your response was, well, they have to fix it. And so that helped, I think, me, but still just going through that process was cool.
Right. You guys you're leaving out one thing.
Oh, well, there's a few other things. Our house didn't appraise. That's one of them.
Oh, there you go. That's what I was going to say.
The-
So it didn't appraise. What happened? So in other words, so when you say it didn't appraise, just so I can make this clear, so you guys had a purchase price of I think it was 550,000 or
547,500.
Originally 547.
oh 547
yeah.
500.
Originally, yeah.
You had an appraisal done. It came in at 545. Take it over.
So the appraisal came in low, and so the lender is only able to lend to us as buyers according to one of two amounts, whichever one is lower, and that's the purchase price or the appraisal. And so our purchase price was 547,500, and our appraisal came in low at 545. And so if we wanted to go through with the transaction, we would have had two options, which is one, we bring that extra $2,500 to the table and cover it so that our lender isn't on the hook for that, basically. Or we counter offer the purchase price and get them to decrease the purchase price down to $545,000, which is the appraisal amount, which now makes us eligible to get our full loan amount that we were planning on from the lender. And so we kind of said, okay, let's counter offer and see if that goes well. And to be honest, we probably would have brought that $2,500 extra to the table had they denied it. But Nick's mom, our realtor, did some little bit of magic, and we sent over our counter offer, and they agreed right away to $545,000, and so that lowered our purchase price and made us eligible.
So for the most part, you guys got every single thing that you guys requested.
Yeah.
Pretty close,
Yeah,
yeah.
pretty dang close.
So that's
But I think worth noting too is our 7,500 in concessions.
That too.
from the seller.
From the
so that
seller,
the
yeah.
seller paid then for all the closing costs. So you guys were pretty much it was your responsibility to bring in the 3% down payment.
Yeah.
Yeah, my advice would be find a realtor that is aggressive, knows sales, knows how to negotiate. Another thing we learned too is sometimes you fall in love with the house and you have to be willing to let it go until it's all said and done, because we learned along the process that even though we really loved this house, there was probably a pretty good chance that we were going to have to let it go. And God blessed us and we kind of got everything that we asked for.
Mhm.
But there was a point in time where we could have had to potentially let that house go. So just be patient. Don't fall in love with the house, and be with a realtor that you trust and is gonna take care of you and fight for you.
Yeah. It's hard not to let those emotions of like, oh, we want it so bad. We're already envisioning
We're all
our
living with our
life.
parents.
Yeah. And just we got probably a month into the process and we're debating, okay, if we lose this, like it sucks and we're gonna have to start this over. We don't want to do that. And so balancing that between like, okay, what do we do to make it happen without forcing it? So I think.
Yeah, and that whole process negotiating with the seller was definitely educational as well. I mean, with the first house that we were looking at, I mean, it was actually kind of cool for me to be like, this is a buyer's market. I have a say in what goes on, and if it eventually came down to the point where it's like, if you're not willing to negotiate, I'm not going to buy your house, and that guy's actually now renting his house again. So.
Yep.
I thought that was super cool. Where I was like, yeah, I have power,
Leverage.
I have leverage, and this is my home that I'm gonna buy. And there's things that I get to ask for. I also am very thankful for the fact that I thought that the seller of our house was a really good guy once we met him, and he even repaired some things that we didn't even ask to be repaired, which I was like, wow, that was really heartfelt to see that there's people out there that are selling homes that actually care. And he was like, you guys are buying this house for this much money. I want you guys to, he replaced the fireplace, or he fixed the fireplace, even though he denied it on the
On the inspection
on the
objection.
inspection objection. He still fixed it anyway. So, just blessed that guy was willing to do those things. But in that whole process, I think that was something that I learned a lot. Well, with our realtor, that it is a buyer's market, so we have leverage, and I don't know, Dan, it hasn't always been.
No.
So in some scenarios,
It changes.
It's not like that.
Oh, no, absolutely. It changes. I mean, you're in that type of market right now to where, like you said, it's a buyer's market. So as bad as you don't want to lose that home, that seller doesn't want to lose you and have to start that whole process all over again too. So there's a balancing act, and that's where your mom comes into play and is able to kind of tilt it one way or the other.
Yeah.
So
I actually have a question for you, Dan, in that aspect is like, when it's not a buyer's market, when it's a seller's market, how does that work? Because when you bought your home, was it a buyer's market?
Well, I bought my home before you were born.
Yeah. So what was it?
No, so we bought it from a builder. So in a seller's market, it's going to be different because it's just the opposite.
Yeah.
So for example, where you guys are like, we want this fixed, when prices are going up, the seller's not as concerned about fixing things because they know that, okay, instead of buying it for $545, I'll go ahead and I'll sell it for $570. I'll get someone else in here. I'll buy it for a higher price, and I won't have to fix any of this stuff. Yeah. When it's a seller's market, it was, I don't know, probably, I would say, 2, 3, 4 years ago, you were getting people, for example, your house at $545 probably would have went for $645. So people would have paid $100,000 higher than what you guys are actually paying, just so they can get that property.
And in their offers, if it's a seller's market and there's 10 to 20 offers on a house, because in a seller's market that does happen, people like us who are the home buyers are sending contracts saying, oh, we won't do the inspection, we'll waive the inspection, like to give that offer value. And so that is kind of a dangerous game. Obviously, if we would have done that, we would have had no idea about the sewer or anything like that. But that's that leverage piece that we have. But, there's a bunch of other things that you do to send in an offer to give it a little bit more leverage in different markets.
Well, and another thing I want to throw out there, too, I know we're running kind of short on time, but I think a lot of people will tell you that rates are high right now. Typically, and either one of you can correct me if I'm wrong, but typically when it is a buyer's market, rates aren't going to be as good. But regardless, that obviously you want to get the best rate in that particular time, but you still want to buy when it's a buyer's market. So anybody out there that's worried about rates, and buy your home now or soon when you have the power to negotiate, and you can worry about your rate later. You say this all the time. What's your quote?
You just refinance.
Yeah.
Well, refinance, and what do you say?
Dating the rate, and you're married to the house.
Yep, exactly.
Yep. So, all right, I've got two final questions for you guys, and they'll be quick here. So one of the things that I want to kind of touch on with you guys too is that you guys have that opportunity now that you guys have the house. You have one extra room that's available to where you can rent it out, and then if you guys fix up the basement, will you have another extra room down there as well?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so right now, let's say, and let's go with best case scenario, right? So you guys have that one extra room, you fix up the basement room, you rent both of those out, right? If you rent both of those out, now what are you guys paying? Now let's say you're going to take that rent for both of those rooms and apply it towards your guys' payment each month. What is each of your monthly rental, or I'm sorry, each of your monthly mortgage payments going to add up to?
$800 each.
$800.
If we have one roommate.
Two roommates.
Yeah.
So it's another obviously benefit that you guys can have, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So, all right, in closing, last question. So with everything you've gone through as far as that home purchasing and all the way from the beginning until now, number one, would you recommend it? Number 2, would you go through it again? Charlie, start with you.
Yeah. So number 1, I would definitely recommend it. As long as you're buying the house with people that you trust, people that that you're able to communicate with clearly, and people who know you and understand you. I would totally recommend it. And then 2, would I go through it again? Absolutely. Even though it was a pretty grueling process, I would definitely go through it again with these guys just to buy a home. I mean, who knows? We might be going down the process again down the future. Like in the future, we might be investing in some more homes. So this is the first of potentially many. So yeah.
Awesome. Riley?
Yeah, I would definitely recommend it. I think we have been on a really long journey as far as just our friendship goes up until now, and this seems to be a pretty big new chapter, and so I know that a lot of things are going to stay the same in our friendship, and I also know living with these guys and being business partners and best friends with these guys that we're also going to grow in a bunch of different ways, and I'm excited to see that. So, I definitely recommend that. And then as far as, what was the second question?
Second question is, would you do it again?
Yes, I would definitely do it again, kind of like Charlie said. I mean, we got big plans, big aspirations, and nothing set in stone, but, we're dealing with our first house at the moment, but definitely, would do it again. It seems to make all the sense in the world.
Yeah, can and will do it again.
Nick?
Yeah, I would definitely recommend it. Just like Charlie said, make sure you're doing it with the right people. You're gonna have to have hard conversations. That's not gonna be something that you're gonna bypass, and you have to be with the right people in order to have those conversations. Especially when it comes to money, being transparent with money, helping each other make budgets. What can we afford? What do we want? Communication, and if you have that, then I definitely recommend it, and I would definitely do it again. So
That's awesome. All right. Well, hey, thanks, guys. I appreciate all you guys
you.
coming
Thanks,
in. We're going to
Dad.
have to do a checkup here in the next 6 months or so.
Yeah,
That works.
Thanks
So-
for having us.
But usually at this point in time, what we do is we say, hey, how can, people reach you? But since we're not a dating app for you guys, we're not going to give out your phone numbers or email addresses. So, but
if you need a realtor, call my mom.
If
There
you
you go.
need some CAD equipment,
If you want to call my mom, you got to call me first.
If you want my Instagram, ask in the comments.
we'll get them out to all the single ladies out there for you.
Thanks.
All right, guys. Thanks for coming in. We appreciate it.
thank you,
Thanks,
Dad.
Dan.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Behind the Home Build, the podcast for all things home building. He's Danny, and I'm Riley, and if you're interested in learning more from experts in the home building community, we're on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcast, and a few others, all at Behind the Home Build Podcast. And if you have any questions at all, make sure to send them our way on Instagram, LinkedIn, or Facebook at Behind the Home Build Podcast.